You know that feeling when you walk into a restaurant, not a chain, not some fast casual franchise, but one of those places that feels like it's been there since the pavement was laid? You know, the vinyl booths are a little worn, the waitress calls you honey, and the smell of the coffee just hits different.
Oh, absolutely. It's the kind of place where the menu hasn't changed in 30 years because, frankly, it doesn't need to. It's comfort, it's stability.
Exactly. It feels permanent. But here's the thing that really stopped me in my tracks recently. We assume these places are permanent, but the people running them aren't. I was reading about the restaurant landscape in Canton, Ohio specifically, and it looks like we are standing on the edge of a massive shift. They're calling 2026 a critical year, not just a good time to sell, but a pivot point for legacy family owned restaurants.
It's interesting you bring this up here in Ohio because it's a perfect microcosm of a much larger trend, but with some very specific local accelerants. We aren't just talking about a for sale sign going up in the window. We are talking about that retirement wave of transitions finally crashing onto the shore of the hospitality industry.
You mean the silver tsunami? That sounds ominous.
It's a bit dramatic, sure, but it's accurate. We have a generation of baby boomer owners who have been running these diners, pizzerias, and steakhouses for 40 years. They are tired. They want to retire. And 2026 seems to be the mathematical sweet spot where their desire to exit aligns with a unique market opportunity in Ohio.
So let's dig into that date. Why 2026? Why not last year? Why not wait until 2030? Is there something special about the water in Canton?
Well, it's less about the water and more about the momentum. Think about the Pro Football Hall of Fame Village. If you've been watching Canton, you know this isn't just a museum anymore. It's finally becoming more of a destination. By 2026, some of the investments and changes in that development is expected to draw a completely different volume of tourism. If you own a restaurant nearby, your valuation is theoretically peaking because the potential customer base has been growing.
Right, so if I'm the owner, I'm sitting on a gold mine. But that brings up a tricky psychological point. If business is about to boom because of the Hall of Fame Village expansion, why would I sell now? Why not ride the wave?
That is the $1 million question. And the answer is usually energy. Running a high volume legacy restaurant is grueling. If you are 70 years old, do you really want to handle a 30% increase in foot traffic? Do you want to figure out modern point of sale systems, TikTok marketing, and staffing shortages just to capture that extra revenue? Or do you sell the potential of that revenue to someone younger, hungry, and ready to grind?
That's a great distinction. You're selling the potential. You're selling the ticket to the ride rather than taking the ride yourself.
Precisely. And for the buyer, that's the allure. You aren't starting from scratch. You aren't hoping people like your burger. You are buying a place where people have been eating burgers since 1985. You're buying cash flow on day one. But, and this is a big but, buying a legacy business is terrifying in its own way.
I can imagine. It feels like stepping into someone else's shoes, but the shoes are already molded to their feet. If I buy Joe's place and Joe has been there every morning for 3 decades and suddenly I'm there, don't the regulars revolt?
They might. That's the legacy trap. If you change too much, you alienate the people who pay the bills. If you change too little, the business slowly dies because it doesn't attract new blood. The buyers coming into this market in 2026 need to be sophisticated. They can't just be great cooks, they have to be diplomats.
Diplomats with a spatula. I like that. So, if we look at the buyer side, who are these people? Are we seeing big corporations swooping in to turn these family spots into generic chains? Or is it still individual entrepreneurs?
It's a mix, but the most successful transitions we're seeing and will see in 2026 are individual investors or small partnerships. Maybe it's a cook or manager who's tired of working for a corporate chain and wants their own kingdom. Or maybe it's a local family looking to expand their portfolio. The key is that they understand the emotional equity of the business.
Emotional equity. That's a term you don't see on a balance sheet.
You don't, but it's real. It's the fact that the high school football team eats there every Friday. It's the fact that the Rotary Club meets in the back room. When you buy a business in a tight-knit community like this, you are buying a social responsibility. If you strip that away to cut costs,
That's fascinating. It's almost like the business is a living organism. You can't just swap out the heart and expect the body not to notice. But let's flip back to the seller for a second. If I'm that owner looking at 2026 as my exit ramp, what should I be doing right now? I assume I can't just wake up on January 1st, 2026 and hand over the keys.
oh, absolutely not. If you wait until you're burnt out to sell, you've already lost value. You need at least a year or two of runway. That means right now, you need to be cleaning up your books. A lot of family businesses are run, let's say, informally.
Informally, that's a polite way of saying the receipts are in a shoebox and the inventory system is all in the owner's head.
Uh, exactly. I know we're low on tomatoes because the shelf looks empty. That doesn't fly with a bank financing a buyer. You need clear profit and loss statements. You need to show that the business makes money even when the owner isn't standing at the register. If the business is you, it's not sellable. It's just a job. You need to prove it's a system.
That's a hard pill to swallow for someone who prides themselves on being the face of the place. They have to make themselves obsolete to get paid.
It's the ultimate irony of entrepreneurship. To succeed in the end, you have to fire yourself, right? But there's another layer to this 2026 timeline in Canton. It's the interest rate environment and the lending landscape. We've been through a period of high volatility. The expectation is that as things stabilize, financing for these types of acquisitions, specifically SBA loans, will be more accessible. So you have the Hall of Fame traffic, the retiring boomers, and potentially friendly banks. It's a perfect storm.
It really does sound like the stars are aligning. But I want to zoom out a bit. We're talking about transactions, valuations, SDE. But what happens if these transactions don't happen? What if the kids don't want the restaurant and no buyer steps up?
That is the darker side of the story. If a legacy restaurant doesn't sell, it usually just closes. And when it closes, you lose more than just a place to get eggs and bacon. You lose a third place. You know the concept of the third place. Not home, not work, but that community hub.
Right. The place where you bump into neighbors.
Exactly. When communities like this lose those anchors, the texture of the city changes. It becomes more homogenized. So this wave of buying and selling in 2026 isn't just an economic event, it's a cultural preservation effort. The buyers are essentially curators of local history. They're keeping the lights on in the town square.
That puts a lot of pressure on the incoming generation. They aren't just buying a business, they're stewarding a piece of the city's soul. Do you think they're ready for that?
I think some are. The smart ones are realizing that vintage and authentic are things you can't manufacture. You can build a shiny new restaurant, but you can't build 50 years of nostalgia. Buying that nostalgia is a shortcut to customer loyalty, provided you don't mess it up.
Provided you don't mess it up, the famous last words.
It's a high wire act. You have to modernize the kitchen so the staff doesn't quit, maybe update the lighting so it doesn't look dingy, but you better not touch that signature lasagna recipe.
It's funny, we talk about innovation so much in the tech world, but here the innovation is in preservation. It's about innovating the operations so the experience remains timeless.
That's a brilliant way to put it. Operational innovation for experiential preservation. And for the sellers, the ones looking at 2026, the advice is simple. Start decluttering now, physically and financially. Make your business look like a machine that anyone can drive, not a unicycle that only you can balance on.
And for the buyers?
For the buyers, look for the bones. Look for the places that have survived recessions, pandemics, and diet fads. If a place is still standing after all that, it has something special. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just grease the axles and let it roll. Okay,
I love that. Grease the axles. It implies respect for what was built. As they say at the Hall of Fame, honor the past, inspire the future.
it has to be about respect. If you walk in with arrogance, the community will reject you. If you walk in with curiosity and respect, they'll root for you. Because ultimately, the customers want the place to survive. They don't want to lose their Sunday morning booth.
It really makes you look at your local diner differently. You realize it's this fragile ecosystem hanging in the balance. waiting for the baton to be passed.
It is. And 2026 is going to be the year we see if those batons get dropped or if they get carried across the finish line.
It's a fascinating time for Canton and really for any town with deep roots. We're watching history change hands, one menu at a time. It makes me want to go grab a burger at my local spot and just appreciate it while it's there.
You should. And maybe tick a little extra. They're working hard to keep that legacy alive.
Always. Well, that's plenty of food for thought for today. It's not just about business, it's about what we value and what we decide to keep.
Couldn't have said it better.
Thanks for breaking this down with me. It's going to be an interesting couple of years to watch.
My pleasure. Let's see what the future tastes like.